Good morning, and this is Morning Reel, a 3 to 4 to 100 minute or so podcast of films that I review, hosted by yours truly, Ray Salazar. I review all kinds of stuff, whether it's requested or not. And if you want to make requests, suggestions, comments, officialmorningreel@gmail.com. This morning, I'm going to talk about Selma. It's a 2014 drama film directed by Ava DuVernay, who also directed this documentary that I recently watched. That's on Netflix, called 13th. Pretty wild film. This film, Selma, is a biographical film. It's based on the 1965 Selma to Montgomery voting rights marches that were initiated by James Bevel, played by Common's a pretty good actor, man. Like, say what people got to say about him as far as like his acting is concerned, regardless of the John Wick films. He got it going on, man. I like that dude. Anyways, Martin Luther King Jr., he led these marches, along with Hosea Williams and John Lewis, civil rights leaders. And it's crazy that we got David Oyelowo as Dr. King, Tom Wilkinson, who plays a really good Lyndon B Johnson, dude. He goes neck and neck with Bryan Cranston's Lyndon B Johnson. And if nobody knows about that, I would suggest just looking up Bryan Cranston, LBJ. And he plays a freaking good LBJ. But this guy, Tom Wilkinson, man, obviously, I've been seeing this guy act since I was a kid. And a lot of the roles that he's played, especially the role for the Patriot, he does a pretty good job, man. We see a LBJ who's no holds bar, whose language is very raw and direct and to the point. But you can tell that this guy, he embraces the pressure that's been given onto him, especially during that time, right? Either way, we got Tim Roth, who plays George Wallace, man, the governor of Alabama at that time. And man, that George Wallace, Tim Roth, man, like, he's a really good actor as well, man. Like, he nails all the roles that he plays, and you can tell he's dedicated to the role. And for this character, the George Wallace character, you want to hurt this guy. You really want to inflict some pain, because this guy is just messed up towards African Americans, man. It sucks. We got Carmen Ejogo as Coretta Scott King. And man, this film is pretty good. Look, straightforward. This film is all about Martin Luther King Jr. hooking up with the president and pretty much not begging, but pleading, asking the president, hey, we need your help. Like, you're the only person in this whole country with a stroke of a pen can sign a bill that pretty much says, like, hey, don't mess with me for me wanting to vote, for me wanting to register, And during that time in 65, and I'm pretty sure, like, up until that bill was signed, right? And even maybe a years prior, 1964, black folk couldn't walk into the county register and vote. They would be harassed to leave, and it's fucked up. Racist ass fools, man. Like, this other law was passed in 64, which doesn't speak to the notion of, like, hey, you know what? Like, everybody deserves the same thing, as far as, like, or to go to the bathroom or to sit on the bus and where to vote and who to vote for, that freedom, that liberty. Why can't everybody have it just off GP? It sucks. And Lyndon B Johnson's like, well, I got Vietnam up my ass right now, man. Like, that's one of my top priorities, if not the only priority. But he doesn't realize that. I mean, it's not that he doesn't realize it, but it's like he doesn't just turn the other cheek and be like, man, you know what? There's a war going on here in this country as well. And it's a race war, and I feel like that's bigger than a war that's overseas, that, it wasn't even our war to begin with. And even that was acknowledged at the time. And it had to been, right? I mean, unconstitutionally, y'all did it. Either way, this film is really about how that meeting ended with basically the signing of the bill, the iconic bill that LBJ makes a speech for. And that speech that he does at the end of the film was pretty good, man. I mean, I gotta say, this film overall is entertaining. It's kind of weird to see this movie in the sense that obviously it's a scripted film, right? I really felt that it was just a tad too scripted. It didn't feel like, it is crazy to see a fictional dramatization of a late period of these people's lives, of Lyndon B Johnson, and most especially Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We get to see him as a preacher, sort of as a lobbyist in a way, as a husband, and as a father, and as a friend. You see all these dimensions of this person, right? Which I feel like it's a really good screenwriting job just for like creating a character of, MLK, and the people around him as well. Like the dude who plays John Lewis, really good John Lewis, man. People who, like the chick who plays his MLK's wife. I mean, we even have an Edgar J. Hoover, man, in the film talking to OBJ about releasing tapes, trying to get him to stop marching. It's crazy. Like the government got involved, the FBI got involved to stop this from happening. And it's just like, why? Like, can't you see all this injustice is still going on? And for sure, it's going to still go on no matter what. And this has been going on up until today, man. And it sucks. But the fact of the matter is, stuff like this is not going to stop people from getting what they want. And that's kind of like the whole point of the film, too. Like, everybody wants that cake. They don't want the whole piece. They want everything. And that's the thing. Shouldn't you or me have the whole cake at least once, man? At least once? I feel like we should, man. You have all this time where one race was doing it big, and then comes another race just trying to meet, match up. And if it gets better, it gets better. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's a fluctuation. There has to be fluctuation. There's got to be flexibility. There's got to be the a freedom to pursue. Problems with this film, well, just kind of like how I mentioned earlier, it feels a little too scripted. It does edge up, like in the turn during the middle of the film. Midway into the second act, even like towards the end of the third act. It's a really good exchange of events. And I like how it's like a domino effect, really. Like one event happens, doesn't turn out to be good, it gets worse. And then maybe there's a slight shift of hope. And then eventually it balances out. It's a really good written script. The actors are pretty good. I just felt like it's a little bit too scripted. The cinematography is great. I like how DuVernay did a good job with this film. Is basically telling a story, and it's not just a story. It's like it's real life. It's this actually happened. And it's crazy how people were back then, and how some people are that way, still feel that way, and it's a reminder that don't forget. There's still some F stuff happening, and hopefully it gets to be stopped. Oprah Winfrey's in this film. She's pretty good playing just some regular woman just wanting to register to vote, and the county clerk or whatever is giving her a hard time, like asking her how many senators or how many of these people are in the office or whatever, and she gives him the answer. She knows her shit. And then he's like, name each one. I'm like, dude, come on, really? Would you give that same trouble to an 80-year-old white woman from a hospice or whatnot, man? Like, come on, dude. I got to give this film 3.5 out of 4 tokes. It's a solid film. I suggest everybody should watch it. Honestly, I hadn't seen this film up until like a couple of days ago. I mean, it came out recently, right? It's won an Oscar. I'm sure it's won multiple awards, well deservingly, right? Just watching it, I enjoyed it. I honestly did not know much about the Selma situation, up until this movie came out. I didn't, I'm pretty sure I was taught in it in school, but I don't remember it really. I remember more about Montgomery and Birmingham and all those things, but not Selma. And obviously, watching the film and actually knowing about it beforehand or afterwards, you can tell that it was a really iconic event that pretty much guaranteed equal voting rights for everyone in the country, born or becoming a citizen. Like, it's a pretty badass bill and law to have. It sucks that it needed to, like, such a thing needed to exist. It couldn't just be all natural. But that's the thing about this country, is that when we want something, we get what we want, whether it hurts other people or not. But it's for the greater good of the country, right? My name is Ray Salazar. Follow me on Morning Shot Films, IG and YouTube. Check out my website, morningshotfilms.co, where I put this podcast out or not. You can listen to it on Apple Podcasts. And if you're listening from there, give me a rating, dude. Give me a 5-star or a 2-star. Come on, give me something. And you can check me out on YouTube as well. Again, and I put this podcast out on YouTube. On to the next one. And happy birthday, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.